I was finalizing an investment deal in my home office when my phone buzzed with a text from my cousin Cynthia family meeting at Sunvolt headquarters. They're dividing the company. My heart skipped a beat. I'm Heather Brooks, 32, founder of Sunvolt Energy, a solar panel company I built from the ground up in Phoenix, Arizona. A family meeting I hadn't been invited. Unease crept in as I stared at the screen, Cynthia's words echoing in my head, dividing my company. I flipped open my laptop, the glow of the monitor cutting through the quiet evening. At the top of my inbox sat an email from my brother Daryl. The subject line read, Sunvolt Family Reorganization. Expecting a harmless update, I clicked only to feel my stomach drop. As CEO, I've decided each family member will take charge of a Sunvolt branch to secure our legacy, it read. CEO, I had never stepped down. My pulse quickened as I scanned his message, formal, detached, and disturbingly confident, claiming a family vote I knew nothing about. Something about it felt too deliberate, too rehearsed. I logged into Sunvolt's internal system and pulled up the shareholder registry. My name, Heather Brooks, founder and sole owner, should have been right there at the top. It wasn't. The space where my title once appeared was blank. My stomach knotted. Someone had erased me from my own company. Leaning back, I stared at the screen, hands trembling. This wasn't an error, it was betrayal. My family was plotting behind my back, dismantling everything I had built. I gripped my phone, resolve hardening. I needed answers, and I needed them now. Ever had your family try to steal your success? Share your story in the comments. I opened my laptop and logged into Sunvolt's server, my inbox lighting up with a single new email from Daryl Brooks, my older brother, sent just an hour ago. Its subject line read, Sunvolt Reorganization Family Decision. My stomach tightened. I clicked it open, expecting some routine update, but instead found a cold, formal announcement. Daryl had declared himself CEO and outlined a new structure for Sunvolt Energy, the solar panel company I had built from the ground up. He claimed the family had agreed to divide the company's branches among us, calling it a fair division for our legacy. The words hit me like a punch. I hadn't agreed to anything. I reread the email, my eyes catching phrases like unanimous family vote and strengthening our shared vision. Daryl listed the department's production sales research but never specified who would oversee them. The language was vague, calculated, as if meant to disguise the real power shift. My pulse quickened. This wasn't just a bold move, it was a takeover. My phone buzzed. A new text from Cynthia, my younger cousin, flashed on the screen. They're acting like they own the place already. Her words sent a chill down my spine. I pictured them strutting through Sunvolt's glass-walled offices, the ones I had designed, talking like conquerors in a place that was once mine. I dialed Carl Jenkins, my operations manager, my fingers trembling slightly. He picked up on the second ring. Carl, what's happening at the office? I asked, forcing my voice to stay calm. He hesitated. I thought you knew, Heather. Ronald Tate, your former business partner, came by this afternoon. He said you approved splitting the company with your family. He had documents, emails, everything. My jaw clenched. Ronald, the man I'd cut ties with 2 years ago over creative differences, was back. I pressed Carl for more. He admitted Ronald had convinced several staff members that the plan was finalized and that I'd signed off during a private meeting. No such meeting had ever happened. I opened Sunvolt's internal system to check the admin panel. My credentials, username, password, full access should have worked. I typed them in and hit enter. The screen flashed red, access denied. I tried again, slower this time. Same result. My name was gone from the administrator list. A cold sweat spread down my neck. Someone had locked me out of my own company. I leaned back, staring at the error message. This wasn't a glitch, it was deliberate. Daryl, with Ronald's help, had tampered with the system. My company, my life's work, was slipping through my fingers. I searched my email archives, hoping for anything that might make sense of this. Typing Daryl's name in the search bar brought up old threads from 3 years ago, back when Sunvolt was still a small startup. One message caught my eye, sent just after I secured our first major investor. Daryl had written, "Your little project is a stupid idea. Solar panels. Good luck competing with the big dogs." His words had stung back then, but now they burned. Another email from my sister Cheryl Brooks was worse. She'd replied to a family thread about my first industry award. "Heather's just showing off again. She'll crash and burn soon enough." I'd ignored their barbs at the time, chalking them up to jealousy. But now those words painted a clear picture: they'd never supported me. Scrolling further, I found more messages. Daryl had mocked my business plan in an email to our parents, calling it a waste of time. Cheryl had chimed in, dismissing my investor pitch as all talk, no substance. Their disdain was unmistakable, preserved in digital ink. I closed my laptop for a moment, my hands shaking. This wasn't just about control, it was personal. They'd been waiting for a chance to tear me down and claim what I'd built. The betrayal cut deeper than I'd expected. My own family, the people I'd grown up with, were trying to steal my legacy. I called Carl again, my tone firmer now. "Who else knew about this?" He hesitated, then said Ronald had reassured several staff members that the transition was Heather's idea. I told him to secure the building and not let anyone touch the systems until I arrived. Hanging up, I felt a surge of determination. I needed answers, and fast. My mind turned to Joan Palmer, my attorney who had helped draft Sunvolt's founding contracts. She would know where to start. I sent her a message requesting an urgent meeting. Whatever Daryl and Ronald were planning, I wasn't going to let them win without a fight. I stood up and began to pace my thoughts, spinning. The email, the locked account, the old messages, they all pointed to a coordinated effort. Daryl wasn't acting alone. Ronald's involvement meant this went beyond family greed. I glanced at my phone. Cynthia's text was still open. At least her loyalty was clear. She had warned me, risking her own standing in the family. I typed a quick reply. "Thank you. Stay safe." Grabbing my keys, I took a deep breath. Sunvolt was mine, and I would do whatever it took to protect it. I met Joan Palmer at her downtown office, my hands trembling, as she opened the contract files. Joan, my attorney, had drafted Sunvolt's founding documents 5 years ago, back when I was just a dreamer with a solar panel startup. Now I needed her to untangle the nightmare my family had created. I handed her my laptop, still open to Daryl's email claiming he was CEO. "They've locked me out of my own company," I said, voice tight. "And my name's gone from the shareholder registry." Joan's eyes narrowed as she flipped through a stack of files on her desk. She pulled up Sunvolt's original agreement on her monitor, the glow pale against the dim room. "Let's start with the originals," she said, scrolling through the archived contracts. I watched, heart pounding, as she compared the current records to the ones I'd signed when I founded Sunvolt Energy. Her brow creased. "Heather, these signatures are forged," she said sharply. She pointed to a clause transferring shares to Daryl. The signature looked like mine, same loop, same slant, but the alignment was slightly off, a telltale glitch from digital tampering. My blood boiled. This wasn't just a power grab, it was fraud. Joan printed the original contract, the one I'd signed in her office years ago, proving I owned 100% of Sunvolt through my holding company. The paper felt like a lifeline in my hands. "This is your armor," she said, passing me the document. "No one can dispute this." I gripped it, my resolve hardening. Daryl and Ronald, my former business partner, thought they could rewrite my legacy. They were wrong. My phone buzzed, snapping me from my thoughts. Cynthia's name flashed on the screen with a new text. "They're at headquarters right now, rearranging the office." My jaw tightened. I pictured Daryl striding through my conference room as if he owned it, Ronald scheming beside him. I replied quickly, "Stay out of their way. I'm coming." Cynthia's loyalty was a small anchor in the storm, but I couldn't dwell on that now. Time was slipping away. Joan kept digging, pulling up internal Sunvolt emails I hadn't seen. "Look at this," she murmured. A thread between Daryl and Ronald dated 2 weeks ago laid out their plan to restructure the company. Ronald had written, "Once we update the records, Heather's out." Daryl replied, "She'll never see it coming." My stomach twisted at their betrayal. These weren't just messages, they were evidence. Joan saved them to a secure drive, her movements precise. "This will bury them," she said, meeting my eyes. I nodded, a fire sparking inside me. I grabbed my phone and called Marcus Reed, head of Sunvolt Security. "Marcus, I need you at headquarters," I said steadily. "No one touches anything until I arrive. Be ready to escort people out if I tell you." He agreed, his tone professional, but tight. I hung up, mind racing through next steps. The drive from Joan's office to Sunvolt headquarters was barely 10 minutes, a straight shot through Phoenix's quiet evening streets. I had to confront them tonight before they caused more damage. Joan handed me a USB drive containing the incriminating emails and a printed copy of the contract. "Take these," she said. "Show them who's in charge." I slipped the drive into my pocket, its weight grounding me. My laptop, still open to the falsified records, went into my bag alongside the contract. I wasn't just fighting for control. I was defending everything I'd built. Sunvolt wasn't merely a company, it was proof that I could rise above their doubt and mockery. As I stood to leave, Joan caught my arm. "Heather, stay calm. They'll try to twist this, make it personal. Don't let them." I nodded, but my mind was already at headquarters, picturing Daryl's smug face. I thanked Joan and stepped into the cold night air. The drive felt like a countdown, each passing mile pulling me closer to confrontation. My fingers gripped the steering wheel, the contract and USB drive in my bag like weapons. I wasn't going to lose everything I'd worked for. Not to my brother, not to Ronald, not to anyone. I pushed through the glass doors of Sunvolt's headquarters, and the hum of conversation died instantly. The conference room glowed under harsh fluorescent light, and there they were, my family gathered around the table as if they owned the place. Daryl stood at the head marker in hand, scrawling department names across a whiteboard. Production, sales, research. He called himself CEO, his voice booming with counterfeit authority as he assigned roles. Cheryl, my sister, leaned forward, pitching marketing ideas like she'd studied Sunvolt's operations for years. Diane, my mother, nodded approvingly. In the corner, Cynthia's uneasy eyes met mine, silent but alert. Behind me, Joan, my lawyer, entered quietly, her briefcase firm in her grip. I stepped forward, my voice slicing through the tension. "Stop this right now." The room froze. Daryl's marker halted midair, his smirk fading. "Heather, this isn't your decision," he said, dripping with false confidence. "The family voted. Each of us gets a branch." I stared him down, pulse steady despite the fury building inside me. "You don't get to vote on my company," I shot back. Joan opened her briefcase, pulling out the original incorporation contract I'd signed 5 years ago. She slid it across the table, her tone controlled but sharp. "You forged her signature, Daryl. Did you really think that would go unnoticed?" The air thickened. Daryl's face blanched, but he quickly masked it with a forced chuckle. "Forged. Please. You used family money to start this, Heather. $50,000. We deserve a share." Ronald, my former partner, nodded beside him, avoiding my eyes. "It's only fair," he muttered, voice rehearsed. I clenched my jaw. "That was a loan, and I repaid every cent years ago," I said coldly. "You have no claim." I pulled out my laptop and opened an old email Daryl had sent me 3 years earlier, back when Sunvolt was just a fragile idea. I read aloud, my tone steady but cutting. "Your project's a failure waiting to happen, Heather. Don't waste our time." The silence that followed was suffocating. Cheryl shifted uneasily, her marketing pitch forgotten. Diane's lips parted as if to speak, but I cut her off. "You agreed with him then, didn't you?" Her eyes darted away, guilt painting her face. Joan stepped forward, holding up the contract. This document proves Heather is the sole owner of Sunvolt through her holding company. The altered signatures don't change that. She pointed to the forged clause Daryl had inserted, the digital tampering clear under scrutiny. Ronald tried to interject. This is all a misunderstanding. I cut him short, my gaze like steel. You thought you could erase me from my own company and get away with it? Cynthia remained silent, the only calm presence amid the chaos. I turned back to Daryl, my voice icy. You once called Sunvolt a failure, and now you want to claim it. I built this company from nothing. I slid my laptop toward Joan, who opened the email thread between Daryl and Ronald, the one outlining their plan to restructure the company. You plotted this behind my back. I said each word, deliberate. Diane finally spoke, voice trembling. Heather, we're family. We just wanted to be part of your success. I shook my head. You don't get to claim my success after betting against me. I glanced at the two security officers stationed near the door. This meeting is over, I said flatly. Leave my headquarters. Daryl scoffed. You can't just throw us out. Joan's voice cut in calm but commanding. She can, and she will. Legally, this company belongs to her. Cheryl rose her chair, scraping the floor. You're making a mistake, Heather, she said weakly. Diane reached for my arm, her eyes pleading. We're your family, she whispered. I stepped back. Not when you try to steal what's mine. I nodded toward security, my eyes never leaving Daryl's. Escort them out if they refuse. The silence was suffocating. Ronald hurriedly gathered his documents. Cheryl whispered something to Diane, who turned away in defeat. Cynthia stood beside me, quiet and steady. I straightened, clutching the contract and my laptop proof of everything I'd built. This was my fight, and I wasn't backing down. I stood at the conference table, my voice steady, as their arguments faded into silence. The security team, led by Marcus, stepped forward, their presence a quiet authority. Escort them out. I ordered, my gaze fixed on Daryl, his face twisted with shock and defiance. You'll regret this, Heather, he shouted, slamming his fist on the table. I'll sue you for everything. I didn't flinch. His threats were hollow, just a desperate attempt to cling to power he never had. Diane stepped forward, her tone pleading. Heather, we're your family. This is too much. I shook my head, unmoved. You crossed that line when you tried to take my company. Cheryl clutched her purse, her eyes darting toward the door. What about my kids? She asked, her voice trembling. This will destroy their reputation. My reply was cold and deliberate. You should have thought of that before plotting against me. I turned to the room, my voice sharp. You all thought you could profit off my work. Daryl, that red Porsche you bought last year paid for with what you believed would be Sunvolt's future earnings. His jaw tightened, but he stayed silent, confirming the truth. Then I faced Cheryl. And you, flying off to Hawaii for luxury vacations while I was signing contracts to keep this company alive. Her cheeks reddened as her fingers fidgeted with the strap of her purse. I turned to Diane and my father, who had remained silent until now. You two renovated your villa, didn't you? New pool, marble floors, all while I was building Sunvolt from scratch. Diane's eyes dropped, her defense crumbling. The room fell silent, their lavish lifestyles exposed, funded by their false sense of entitlement to my success. As the guards escorted them out, I didn't raise my voice. I simply turned away. Real power didn't need noise. Daryl grabbed his briefcase, papers spilling across the floor, fake documents bearing my signature, now worthless. Ronald scrambled to pick them up, his voice shaky. This is a misunderstanding, Heather. We didn't mean I cut him off, my tone like ice. You meant to take everything I built. Save your excuses. He froze, clutching the forged papers, his confidence shattered. Cheryl left her planner behind, pages filled with marketing notes she'd never use. Diane lingered for a moment, her eyes begging silently, but I turned my back, done with their manipulation. Cynthia remained, her quiet support grounding me. She stepped closer, her voice low. You did what you had to, she said, touching my arm lightly. I nodded, grateful for her loyalty but too focused to dwell on it. The conference room was empty now, except for Joan and me. My lawyer gathered the scattered documents, her expression calm yet determined. "These are evidence," she said, stacking the papers neatly. "We'll need them for the next step." I didn't ask what she meant, my thoughts were already on securing Sunvolt. I called Carl, my operations manager, who answered on the first ring. "Carl, come to headquarters immediately," I said firmly. "I need you to oversee the office tonight. No one accesses anything without my approval." He agreed, his tone steady despite the late hour. I hung up, my mind racing. The forged documents, locked accounts, secret meetings, it had all been a coordinated attack. I wouldn't let it happen again. Turning to Joan, my resolve hardened. "We need to lock down the systems," I said. "New passwords, limited access, everything." Joan nodded, opening her laptop. "I'll coordinate with your IT team," she replied. "We'll audit every account and restrict any unauthorized changes." I paced the room, my thoughts methodical. Sunvolt wasn't just my company, it was proof that I could overcome their doubt. I wouldn't let greed undo that. Joan typed rapidly. "We'll also conduct a forensic audit," she added. "If they moved any funds, we'll find them." I nodded, focus sharpening. Every action had to be precise. I walked to the whiteboard where Daryl had scrawled his so-called reorganization plans and wiped them clean in one motion. The marker streaks disappeared, just like their claim to my company. Cynthia watched silently. "You're stronger than they ever gave you credit for," she said softly. I gave her a faint smile, the weight of the night pressing down. The guards returned, confirming everyone was gone. Marcus handed me a set of keys, symbolic but heavy with meaning. "The building's secure, Ms. Brooks," he said. I slipped them into my pocket and nodded. Sitting at the head of the table, I stared at the laptop and the contract before me. The forged documents lay scattered, reminders of their betrayal. I wouldn't drop my guard again. Sunvolt was mine, and I'd protect it at all costs. Joan closed her laptop, meeting my eyes. "You're in control now," she said quietly. "But this isn't over." She was right. But for tonight, I'd won. My company was safe, and my family's schemes had finally crumbled. As the IT team reset every login, I monitored the security feeds, planning my next move. The screens flickered, showing Sunvolt's headquarters in Phoenix, Arizona, finally quiet after the chaos. I stood in the server room, eyes fixed on the technicians as they cleared every account. "Enable two-factor authentication on everything I ordered," my tone firm. Sarah, the head of IT, nodded, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "No one gets in without verification," she said. My resolve was steel. Sunvolt was mine, and I would make sure no one tampered with it again. Carl, my operations manager, approached, guilt clouding his face. "I'm sorry, Heather," he murmured. "Ronald told me the changes were your orders. I should have confirmed." I met his eyes, gauging his sincerity. "From now on, you verify everything," I replied, voice sharp but even. "Every document, every email, every call, no exceptions." He straightened. "I won't fail you again," he promised. I wanted to believe him, but trust was fragile now. Systems, not words, would safeguard my business. I walked the halls myself, assuring everyone Sunvolt's leadership was intact. Some employees lingered at their desks, whispering doubts. "Is Heather still in charge?" one asked, glancing my way. I stopped answering clearly. "I founded Sunvolt, and I'm not going anywhere." Their nods were cautious, but I saw relief flicker in their eyes. I visited each department, production, sales, research, repeating the same message: Sunvolt is stable. Your jobs are safe. My presence steadied the room, though I knew trust would take time to rebuild. My phone buzzed with an IT alert. Diane had tried logging into the old admin portal, blocked instantly by the new firewalls. I smirked, picturing her frustration as access was denied. She thought she could sneak back in. I muttered, forwarding the alert to Joan. My lawyer replied at once. "Good. The system's solid. Keep monitoring." I nodded, relieved by the confirmation. Diane's attempt was desperate, a sign they still hadn't given up. Then came the real threat. Sarah hurried over, tension etched on her face. Ronald contacted one of our investors, she said, showing me a forwarded email. He's pitching a new deal, claiming to represent Sunvolt. My blood ran cold. Ronald wasn't just disloyal, he was trying to sabotage our contracts. I grabbed my phone and called the investor, Mr. Larson, a longtime partner. Mr. Larson, this is Heather Brooks, I said steadily. Ronald Tate has no authority to act for Sunvolt. I'm the sole owner and the only one handling negotiations. Larson paused, then assured me he hadn't signed anything. I trust you, Heather, he said. Tell me what you need. I exhaled, tension easing. Ronald's ploy had failed. Back in my office, the day's weight settled over me. My inbox overflowed, not with accusations, but with support. Employees wrote messages of loyalty. Thank you for fighting for Sunvolt. We're with you. A major client, Solar Tech Solutions, added, we heard what happened. Glad you're still leading. Each message felt like a brick, rebuilding the company's foundation. I replied to everyone, fingers steady on the keys. Sunvolt is stronger than ever. Thank you for standing with us. By midnight, the IT team completed the reset. Sarah handed me a detailed report, two-factor authentication, encrypted backups, restricted admin rights. No one's breaking through this, she said, confidence mirroring mine. I scanned the pages. Every safeguard was a shield against future attacks. Carl checked in next, confirming the office was locked down with new access codes. I've got eyes on everything, he said, his voice firm. I trusted his commitment, but I'd still verify every detail myself. A text from Cynthia lit my screen. You're unstoppable. I smiled, her faith a quiet strength. I didn't reply. There was too much left to do. Pacing the office, I reviewed the threats ahead. Ronald's stunt with the investor proved the fight wasn't over. Diane's login attempt showed they hadn't learned. I couldn't relax, not yet. Sunvolt was running again, orders moving, employees focused, but I still felt the shadow of their next move. I sat at my desk, the contract from Joan still in my bag, a reminder of my legal armor. The forged papers, the locked accounts, the secret meetings, those were battles I'd won, but the war was far from over. I opened my laptop, checking the live feeds one last time. The monitors showed a quiet building, yet I knew better than to trust calm. Sunvolt was mine again, but I would stay vigilant, ready for whatever came next. 6 months later, a legal notice arrived from an unfamiliar law firm. The envelope bore the names of Daryl, Cheryl, Diane, and Ronald, demanding a share of Sunvolt's equity based on a supposed family agreement. I sat at my desk, the paper heavy in my hands, but my resolve remained unshaken. Joan, my lawyer, had warned me this might happen. They're desperate, she had said, and now their move was here. I called her immediately, voice steady. They're suing. Can we end this? Joan's response was calm but firm. We'll crush them in court. The Phoenix courtroom was packed, the air thick with tension. Joan stood beside me, her briefcase open, the original Sunvolt contract gleaming like a shield. The judge, a stern woman with sharp eyes, called the case. Daryl's lawyer went first, claiming a verbal family agreement entitled them to shares. I clenched my fists, their lies as bold as ever. Joan rose, her voice cutting through the room. Your Honor, this contract proves Heather Brooks owns 100% of Sunvolt. She presented the document, its signatures untouched by forgery. Joan didn't stop there. She displayed the internal emails between Daryl and Ronald, their plan to restructure my company laid bare. These messages show deliberate fraud, she said, pointing to Ronald's line. Once we update the records, Heather's out. The judge's brow furrowed, pen pausing. Daryl shifted in his seat, his confidence cracking. Cheryl whispered to Diane, faces pale, while Ronald stared at the floor. Joan's evidence was airtight, and their so-called agreement crumbled under scrutiny. The judge delivered her ruling in under an hour. The plaintiff's claims are baseless, she declared. The court dismisses the case and orders Daryl Brooks, Cheryl Brooks, Diane Brooks, and Ronald Tate to pay $15,000 in legal fees. My heart steadied, a weight lifted. Local investors quietly cut ties with Daryl and Ronald. No one wanted their names near a forgery case. I felt no pity, their greed had led them here, and now they faced the consequences. Back at Sunvolt headquarters, my phone buzzed with a message from Daryl. "You're a traitor, Heather." It read, his words dripping with venom. I stared at the screen, finger hovering over delete. He'd called my company a failure, schemed to steal it, and now dared to play the victim. I deleted the message, resolve cold. Diane tried calling the next day, her number flashing repeatedly. I let it go to voicemail, her pleas unheard. I had built Sunvolt without their support, and I didn't need apologies now. Ronald's fall was steeper. A trade association in Phoenix received an anonymous report, likely from a former colleague, detailing his role in the forgery. His reputation, already shaky, took a fatal hit. 2 major firms he had pitched to rejected him outright, citing ethical concerns. I learned this from a client's email noting Ronald's failed attempts to salvage his name. He had gambled on taking my company and lost everything. A flicker of satisfaction crossed me, but my focus remained on Sunvolt. Cynthia texted, brief but warm, "You won, Heather." They didn't stand a chance. I smiled, her loyalty a quiet anchor. I didn't reply. My mind was on the future. Joan called to confirm the legal fees were being pursued. "They'll pay, or they'll face more trouble," she said, tone matter of fact. I nodded, trusting her to handle the details. Sunvolt was thriving, with new contracts signed and employees focused, but I knew better than to relax. I stood in my office, the contract still in my drawer, a reminder of the battles I had fought. Their lawsuit had been a final, desperate grasp, and it had failed. I had protected my company, my legacy, and I wouldn't let them near it again. The silence from my family was my choice, and I stood by it, ready for whatever came next. A year later, Sunvolt's valuation soared to $50 million. The news broke when Forbes named me Young Entrepreneur of the Year in Energy, a title that carried more weight than any award. I stood in my office, the Phoenix skyline visible through the window, my name, now inseparable from a legacy I had fought fiercely to protect. Sunvolt's success was undeniable. New contracts, expanded production, and a team that trusted my leadership. Yet the scars of the past year lingered, a constant reminder of the cost of victory. My family hadn't stopped their efforts. Daryl took to social media, posting vague accusations of my selfishness, claiming I had abandoned them. Cheryl echoed him, her posts dripping with resentment, painting me as the villain who had torn the family apart. Diane remained quieter, but her silence suggested complicity. None offered an apology, only blame. Months later, Diane sent a long message, half apology, half accusation. I read it once, then deleted it. Some doors are meant to remain closed. I felt no guilt. They had tried to steal my company, and I had protected it without their support. Cheryl's next move was bolder. She emailed me proposing a family deal to invest in a new Sunvolt branch. "We're still your family," she wrote, as though that could erase her betrayal. I read her email at my desk, jaw tight. She sought access to my success at a discount, as if I owed her. I replied in a single line, "Your proposal is declined." I hit send, my decision final. Sunvolt was mine, built on my vision, not their greed. I would not let them near it again. Cynthia remained my only ally. She texted occasionally, her messages brief but heartfelt. "You're a force, Heather," one read. I smiled, grateful for her loyalty, but kept my focus on the company. Carl reported that operations were smoother than ever, with new security protocols ensuring no breaches. Joan, my lawyer, had secured the $15,000 in legal fees from the failed lawsuit, a final nail in their defeat. Ronald's name faded from the industry, his reputation buried under the weight of his actions. I walked to the safe in my office where the original Sunvolt contract rested. I locked it inside, not out of fear, but as proof that I could safeguard what I had built. The document was more than paper. It was my defiance, my evidence against their lies. I closed the safe, the click echoing in the quiet room. Sunvolt was stronger now, its foundation unshakable. I had transformed their betrayal into fuel, their doubts into motivation. Looking back, I realized the fight had never been just about Sunvolt. It had been about standing up for what I had earned, refusing to let anyone, family or not, take it away. My family had assumed they could claim my success, but they had underestimated me. I learned to rely on myself, to trust my own strength. Setting boundaries had been difficult, especially with family, but necessary. Their toxicity could not touch me unless I allowed it. Protecting my achievements meant protecting my peace, and I would never compromise that again. To anyone watching my story unfold, I would say this: build your own path, and do not let anyone guilt you into sharing what you have earned. Family can be your greatest support or your heaviest burden. Know when to walk away. Success is not just about winning, it is about guarding what you have built, no matter who stands against you. I stood taller knowing I had done exactly that.